Good morning. What we are Osielo?
That came from me, and Fred can't let me rest. The fact that I cannot say is YOLO, it's making. Lakini najua kusema wajia. So
how do you pronounce wajir?
It's wajia.
Wajir.
Wajia.
Okay.
Good morning, karibu sana to Morning Cafe. Thank you. Asante sana kwa kutuchagua kama kituo chako ukipendacho.
Mpenzi mtazamaji. My name is Fred Ndimuli. Karibu sana to this edition of Morning Cafe. Today is 20th of February 2025. It is also the World Day of Social Justice. Yes, set aside by the UN. So you find out exactly what that means. Yeah? All right. A quick look at the dailies and the headlines, and this I think is my best headline today. Reckless duo. Which duo? These two gentlemen here. We'll tell you why they're being considered reckless.
Yep.
That's the Standard.
The Star, why ODM could take over Ruto's tax burden.
On the Daily Nation, Corps and top judges fight for survival. That's a big headline on the Daily Nation.
People Daily health crisis over 254 billion Kenyan shillings cash gap.
And by now you've realized that there's no two headlines that match. Kila mtu anazungumzia mambo yake. Wanacheza game gani? Ni swali pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Wanazungumzia nani? Tutakueleza zaidi baadaye.
China secures majority of Kenya Adani type projects. That's the Business Daily.
All right, and so for today on State of the Nation, these are the gentlemen who will be in studio for this discussion. Wilson Sossion, that's a former member of the National Assembly and also served as Secretary General of the National Union of Teachers. David Kiplagat, MP Soy, will be in studio, as well as Dr. Peter Mbaye, a leadership and governance expert. Let's go regional now and see what's headlining in Uganda. And on the Daily Monitor, second court-martial war. Message is still a big story there on the front pages. Call for caution, with MPs of the NRM party set to meet President Museveni tomorrow to discuss introducing changes to the UPDF Act of 2005. Legal minds and human rights activists have warned both the president, his executive, and NRM MPs to tread carefully and desist from enacting a law that may pose adverse consequences. Yes. So the debate between what the Supreme Court in Uganda said and what the executive wants on whether civilians can actually be arraigned before the court-martial, which is a military court basically, continues. Now MPs in Uganda want to actually make it law. That yes, you can actually put civilians, you can arraign them before the military court. Lakini wanaambiwa wewe chungeni sana, because some things you do thinking you're doing it against someone else may just come back to bite you later. So there's a lot of disapproval. President says they claim it is irregular for armed civilians to be tried in military courts, yet they believe a man can marry another man. What kind of reasoning is that? Actually, I may ask, what kind of reasoning is this? Do those two even compare? Yeah, so that's a big discussion.
That comparison is wild.
Yeah, what kind of reason? Only from Museveni.
Yes.
Yes, the elder statesman in East Africa. That's the Daily Monitor. On the New Vision,
soldiers raid government farm, steal cows and breeding cattle worth 3 billion Ugandan shillings stolen at gunpoint, and they name worst hit districts in Uganda here on pages 6 and 7.
These are so as crime is concerned.
Yes.
So they talk about Buyende, Luwero, Jinja, Mayuge, Bukwo and Mukono. Old Kampala also has a very high rate of crime. So does Katwe and Kawempe. Over 3,500 cases reported within a span of a year in 2024. This is a very interesting story.
All right.
Okay, surely, soldiers, meaning that this is from the official military. Otherwise, they would not be calling them soldiers.
Yeah.
So soldiers, tuseme sasa majeshi wa Kenya, wameenda wakaingia kwa shamba ya serikali. Addis wakaiba ng'ombe. Kwani wana njaa? Or why else would they steal cow?
Okay. To sell?
Okay. Anyway.
Maybe hakuna salary.
Breeding cattle na tafuta ya kukula pengine.
Besigye to no fate in 5 days, and Justice Douglas Karekona Singiza of the Civil Division of the High Court directed lawyers representing Dr. Kiza Besigye and his aide Haji Obeid Lutale and the state attorneys to file the submission by the end of business today, saying he will deliver a ruling before February 25th. Details on page 9.
All right.
Newly appointed judges sworn in Uganda, and First Lady tips Ugandans on Thanksgiving attitude.
Mkuwe na moyo wa kupeana shukrani.
Yes.
Kurudisha shukrani. Ni kurudisha?
Yes.
Ama ni kushukuru?
Kurudisha shukrani. Uko sawa?
All right. That's as far as Uganda is concerned. We cross over to Tanzania, and on the Citizen, 26 oil gas blocks up for grabs next month. Matters infrastructure, the oil infrastructure and gas infrastructure. The Petroleum Upstream Regulatory Authority plans to auction 26 oil and gas exploration blocks next month, marking the first time such an offer will be made to potential investors since 2013. It's interesting. And they say that attracting investors for these blocks will enhance exploration activities and increase the potential for long-term production. With vast natural gas reserves discovered so far, now the time to push for further exploration. Now is the time to push for further exploration. That's according to Judith Kapinga, who's the Energy Deputy Minister. So Tanzania currently boasts of about 57.54 trillion cubic feet of proven natural gas reserves that is yet to be exploited. If they're able to exploit this, then I think Tanzania will be way ahead of many of its neighbors.
Yep. They're doing well.
Yes?
They're doing well, infrastructure-wise.
And yesterday they were talking about the infrastructure bond that was oversubscribed.
Yeah.
So meaning that there are many people who are interested in giving the money to actually, if they use the money properly, they'll be way ahead.
Yes.
Bora tuweke stima ya ile gari moshi yao.
Wacha jirani apumue.
Pale juu CCM wants members involved in premature election campaigns. Ni Chama cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party. Imagine the ruling party in Tanzania anasema yet elections are actually in October.
Yeah.
Anasema ni mapema sana campaigns. Ni mapema sana.
Kenya
ni mwaka huu. In Kenya you can't actually tell us this. We are always on campaign mode.
Yes.
Dedicated climate financing department in the pipeline. Hiyo pesa sijui atatoa wapi na kuna pesa inatoka Amerika. That's as far as Tanzania news is concerned, according to the Citizen.
Mwananchi Chadema njia panda, no reform, no election. Na kauli ya Lissu kuhusu chaguzi za wavuruga makada waliojipanga kuwania nafasi mbalimbali Oktoba mwaka huu. Sakata uteuzi wa kina Mnyika. Lema la chukua sura mpya, msajili atoa kauli, Mchome sasa akalia kutikavu.
And that's the list of all the angles in that story. One angle is a sakata uteuzi na kina Mnyika. Mnyika, some people walikuwa na controversy ya uchaguzi. That's one angle. Lema la chukua sura mpya, that's something different. Msajili atoa kauli, that's something totally different. Alafu mwishowe Mchome sasa akalia kutikavu. Whatever that is. But all these angles are in one story. Yes. Mchezo
mchafu, Chama cha Mapinduzi, misiba, ndoa za tajwa.
They were talking about early campaigns here. Huyu anasema mtu anasema kumbukumbu ya marehemu bibi yake aliyefariki dunia mwaka wa 1970. Anaalika wajumbe 3,000. Na kwenye kumbukumbu anatoa na posho. Mtu ana birthday anaalika watu wote wamevaa sare za CCM. Sasa hapa imezaliwa CCM ama umezaliwa wewe? So this is what they're saying. People are campaigning early.
Yeah.
So they're taking advantage of birthday parties. Mwingine anasema ati ni kumbukumbu memorial ya mke wake alikufa 1970.
Yeah. But that's petty though.
But you realize now in Tanzania that these are two big headlines focusing on the opposition party and the ruling party.
Yeah.
And this is rare. Inamaanisha sasa siasa za Tanzania zimeanza kuchacha.
Yeah.
So in Tanzania, washa move on. M23 majeshi ya DR Congo wanavyoacha vilio kwa wasafirishaji. Madereva wa malori kutoka Tanzania ni miongoni mwa waathirika kwenye vita kati ya vikosi vya serikali ya Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo na waasi wa M23 vinavyoendelea mashariki mwa nchi hiyo.
Kabisa. Aliyefutwa kazi kule chini kisa darasa la 7 ruksa kumshtaki rais. Anataka kushtaki the president.
Tanzania.
All right.
Funny election kwanza. So these are the regional headlines, and we'll be back to take a look at the local ones shortly. For now, tuangazie masuala ya anga. Hali ya anga na huku Kenya na kuambia it is warm temperatures everywhere.
Yep.
This is Kericho. It is 15 degrees Celsius as we speak. Look at the sunshine throughout the day. Clear skies in Kericho throughout the day. Highs of 29 degrees. And 29 degrees even for Kericho, this is quite high. Yeah, Kericho is a pretty cool place. So 29 degrees Celsius. So warm weather in Kericho.
Na wakwen watafute
Huko ndio maybe niyo joto. Unajua jua kama mjazoea alafu iwachome sana. Ubongo inachemka mnaanza mambo yenye mjazoea. Let's take a look at Nyeri. Nyeri should also ideally be...
Nyeri, it's 11 degrees in Nyeri. All right. Highs of 28 expected in Nyeri. It will be sunny throughout. Little cloud cover. Precipitation here, it's 0 millimeters.
So clear skies in Nyeri today. Where else? Let's take a look at Turkana. Okay, fine. Tunajua Turkana inakuanga moto. 23 degrees as we speak, feels like 24. A bit of cloud cover in the morning, but yes, highs of 38 degrees. This is the hottest we've seen so far. 38 is actually
very high.
Serious, very high. Hii usipokunywa maji utaumia. That's Turkana. Highs of 38 degrees, clear skies, very hot weather. Tumeangazia Kericho, tumeangazia Turkana, tuangalie Diani.
26 degrees in Diani, feels like 28. Highs of 31 degrees expected there. Sunny throughout, very little cloud cover. Precipitation, 0 here. It will get even warmer as the days go by. On Thursday, today is Thursday, yeah? So Friday, still 31 degrees.
Right. Let's come back home and take a look at what the weather is like in Nairobi. 17 degrees Celsius as we speak. Clear skies throughout. No cloud cover at all in Nairobi. Highs of 30 degrees. This is the warmest we've had this week.
Yeah.
So today is actually going to be the hottest day this year in Nairobi. 30 degrees Celsius. Kunywa maji, kama unaweza kaa na vest hata hapo kazini, sio mimi nimesema, jaribu tu. But 30 degrees Celsius in Nairobi. If you can stay indoors, please do. Yes, watu wengi wa Nairobi unajua hawajazoea this kind of temperature.
Don't try that at home. Wewe kuvaa vest ya friend. Don't try that.
Let's take a look at the traffic situation. Yes, you can see quite a number of cases here, and you can already see there's some incident or something happening on Thika Road. This is at the Utali Drift. After you leave a survey on the Utali Drift, just before you get to Mathare Mental Hospital, you can see there's a whole stretch of red there, meaning guys who are using Thika Road do expect a problem there. And that has actually eased the usual pressure on the Pangani interchange. So people using Kiambu Road to town, this is the best time to leave because wale wa Thika Road, they've been held back kidogo. So watu wa Kiambu Road watafika town mapema. If you can leave now, you might actually take advantage of the suffering of motorists on Thika Road.
Thika Road, yeah.
Yes. Let's go to the eastern part of the city and take a look at Jogoo Road. Jogoo Road is not looking bad this morning. Makadara and areas around Shauri Moyo, it's looking more or less much better than normal. Outer Ring Road, hapa ni wapi hapa Manyanja inakaa funny. Yes, this is Outer Ring Road. Na ushapita pipeline. Pale areas around Fedha and Tasia, you can see a whole stretch of red there, probably because matatus are picking up passengers at this time of day. Other roads into town are looking good. Mombasa Road, nothing to report about. Wayaki Way 2 looking good, so does Langata Road. So the main problem is on Thika Road kama kawaida. Watu wa Thika Road sijui mutasema nini.
Wanasema ni Kiambu Road wanaletanga jam. Wakijaribu kuconnect.
So watu wa Kiambu Road sahii wanaenda tu nywe. Watu wa Thika Road ukishafika hapo utalii unakaa hapo. Yes.
Let's take a look at the quote of the day. Every time you decide to push past fear, doubt, or insecurity, you step closer to the person you're meant to be. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of it.
Right, Malta's diplomacy headlining on the front page of the Standard. It was also the biggest headline yesterday. Remember, 3 papers were carrying this same story. So they call it reckless duo. It's a diplomatic faux pas. The government seems to be playing down what everyone sees as a diplomatic blunder. Khartoum has said hosting the Rapid Support Force is a hostile act and should be condemned by the international community. However, a statement by Foreign Affairs CS Musalia Mudavadi justifies the aligning with one side of the conflict as a process to bring stability in the country and region. Well, I'm not an expert in diplomacy, but even as a normal mwananchi, unaangalia vitu zingine unasema hapa mmekosea. Hapa kuna kitu mmekosea. Maybe I could be wrong, but everyone else is saying nyinyi tu ndo mnaona ni sawa. Well, they have a picture there of two gentlemen, the president and his prime cabinet secretary, na pale chini kuna the leader of RSF, anaitwa Hemeti. It was very close to Kenya's administration. That story is on pages 4 and 5. We dedicated 2 pages to discuss this issue on pages 4 and 5 about Ruto's dalliance with RSF risks isolating Kenya, and this is according to experts. They have a picture there of the Deputy Commander of RSF, Major General Abdul Rahim Hamdan Dagalo, with Sudan People's Liberation Movement North Leader Abdel Aziz Al-Hilu, and others at KICC on Tuesday. They had promised to actually sign a charter establishing a parallel government here in Nairobi on Friday. Yeah. They postponed it, but you wonder why. Kenya's CS should actually come out and justify this. Vitu zingine mtu inyamaza.
Yeah. But then I asked myself, kwani ni must, you know?
Was it really necessary?
It isn't.
But there's an interesting story inside page 3 of the Standard today. Yes, they talked about a man who has a betting addiction. He has lost a plea to force the betting firm to close his account. So, anasema mimi am addicted to betting. Yeah. Na hii kampuni hawaniachili. Mimi nataka hiyo wafunge my account huko ndio nisirudie tena, lakini they are not closing it, so he went to court. So the only thing the court said is that he had filed the plea in a wrong court. So ameambiwa aende kwa civil court, sababu alienda court ya kawaida. Oh wow. Yes.
Lakini watafunga kweli?
Sasa sijui kama watafunga.
Ama what can actually help him?
I don't know, but I'm addicted. Please close my account.
Si atafungwa tu ingine. You know, addiction. Something with addiction.
All right. Back to the front page. Other quick stories. Border borders face stiffer penalties as they ply trade. And Ruto increases security budget by 23.3 billion shillings. That's the front page of the Standard. Kule nyuma anaongea Mourinho eyes perfect control of Europa League. So today kuna a lot of matches in the Europa League. The second fixtures. A lot of teams playing at 8:45 and 11 p.m. tonight. So European football. Wale wenye wanacheza Europa League. Check out the Standard today. Right. We'll move on to the Star.
The Star, why ODM could take over Ruto's tax burden. Raila team to take over leadership of key clubs. Tulizungumzia hiyo jana, and we see a photo here of opposition chiefs as they weigh their options. And they're brainstorming. Wiper boss Kalonzo Musyoka, DAPK party leader Eugene Wamalwa, and former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua during a meeting at a Nairobi hotel yesterday. And we've seen somewhere else wanapanga game gani. Let's see. The looming takeover of powerful parliamentary committees by Raila Odinga's allies could be a double-edged sword that could transfer the taxes and budget baggage to the opposition. Tulisema jana, you know, ile kiti ya the Budget and Appropriations Committee na ile ya Finance Committee, Azimio wanaitaka, but the Kenya Kwanza watake
plate. They're already heading the Treasury. No, wanataka Budgets and Appropriations Committee. Are they sure they want this? Because you remember, Gen Zs walikasirika sana mambo ya budget. Sasa hiyo ODM wanasema tupatie hii, to control hii. Gen Z wanaweza wageuka.
Maybe actually Gen Z would love for ODM to have it, because now if Kenya Kwanza had it and whatever happened.
That's one of them. Wamesema hapo double-edged sword, and I agree with them. It could go either way.
Yeah. Housing levy not guarantee for affordable homes, says CS Wahome. This is so interesting, sababu imezungumziwa sana pia social media. And contributing to the government's housing levy fund does not guarantee one a house. That is according to Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome. Throwing taxpayers off balance. And this comes as the CS moves to clarify that the reductions are a tax and not a levy or saving, as initially indicated by Housing and Urban Development's PS, Charles Hinga.
No, I'm wondering why Kenya's never understood that.
Yeah.
that your contribution to the housing, affordable housing plan through the housing levy does not, that's not your money. Hiyo ni pesa umepatia serikali wajenge manyumba ambayo si yako.
But you know sasa,
watu walikuwa nafikiria ati you thought you were buying a house.
Kila mtu anasema yake.
They
ought to get confused.
Jenga nyumba pole.
American held after drug busts in his stomach. That story is on page 20. This is the Star, fresh, independent, and different.
Right. The Daily Nation. Malta's judiciary say Kome and top judges fight for survival. So there's a reprieve. The High Court has blocked the Judicial Service Commission from proceeding with petitions seeking the removal of the 7 Supreme Court judges, even as the exercise was entering a critical stage, following which the officials would have been cleared or told to face a tribunal. This comes amid an onslaught by some senior lawyers and the judiciary's tense relations with President William Ruto's government. Who wants them out and why? That story is on pages 4 and 5 of this Daily Nation, and there's quite some controversy. Lawyers Ahmed Nasir and Nelson Harvey are among those who have filed petitions for the removal of the 7 Supreme Court judges before the Judicial Service Commission. That's a big story on the Daily Nation. Other stories, mini polls, acid test for Ruto and Raila, talk about the impending by-elections in 4 constituencies, a county, and several words coming after fallouts in the 2 main coalitions of Kenya Kwanza and Azimio present a major acid test for top political players. Analysts say the results will be a pointer to how the political landscape looks like going into the 2027 general elections. 10 billion shilling deal to light up homes in 14 counties is another story there. Pale juu anasema there's a Briton who vanished just a day after arriving in Kenya. The DCI are now seeking Interpol's help to trace this 58-year-old man. Stories on page 3.
Kenya, we will trend for the wrong reasons.
I tell you.
As always.
On the back page, alarm over 68 billion shilling gap for HIV and primary healthcare. Now, Kenyans are staring at the risk of dying from HIV, lack of vaccines, and blood transfusion after the Treasury failed to allocate 68 billion shillings for procurement of essential medical commodities. You know what happens is a lot of these programs depend on donor funding. So Treasury rarely allocates money in its budget for matters to do with vaccine. Unajua itakuja na USAID na WHO. Kwani tuweke pesa? Sasa utakipata. That's the Daily Nation today.
People Daily. Health crisis over 254 billion shillings cash gap. And initially the State Department of Medical Services had requested for 426.8 billion shillings allocation, but wakapewa 172.6 billion shillings peke yake. Now that reflected a funding gap of 254.2 billion Kenyan shillings. And that is the same story where you're seeing there, kwa Daily Nation, they're saying a lot of things are going to be affected, that is vaccinations, even the Social Health Authority itself, right? Reprieve for Supreme Court judges in petition, and High Court order stops Judicial Service Commission from continuing with petitions seeking ouster of all 7 Supreme Court judges. Another story there is wild anxious over Pope's health. Pope amekuwa hospitali for a week now over pneumonia. Anasema insiders, according to the People Daily, that he fears that he might not make it. And you know that pneumonia is also coming from several issues that he's had for a very long time. Part of his lungs were removed when he was so young. Sasa hospitali inasema those issues that the Pope ako nayo zinatoka from there.
Wow. Yes. So anxiety over...
He's 88.
Francis' health. Yeah, he's quite elderly.
Yes.
Say that. That's the People Daily. Kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo wanauliza wanacheza gemu gani? Masuala ya siasa ni mipango ya kuunda muungano wa upinzani kwa lengo la kumtimua Rais William Ruto baada ya muhula mmoja inazidi kushika kasi. Huku vigogo wanaoisuka wakisema kwa wako karibu kutoa tangazo la kutetemesha siasa nchini. Ni mambo ya kutisha ati utatetemesha na haitoki.
Ufanyi.
So we have this gentleman there, the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, seen there with the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa of DAP Kenya. So wanacheza game gani? Wanasiasa wa upinzani wakutana na kuahidi kutoa tangazo la kubadili mkondo wa siasa za nchi hivi karibuni. Unajua mambo ya AUC imegeuza kila kitu. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, wanasema binti arudi kuzika baba aliyembaka. Kioja, mwanamke aliyetoweka miaka 18 iliyopita aliporejea kwa mazishi ya babake. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 5 wa gazeti hili. Kwingineko, aua kakake wakizozania ugali na omena. Waliotofautiana kuhusu kiasi cha ugali walikuwa tayarishi jikoni kwa mama yao.
Watu wa kwenu.
Hapa ni uko Osielo. Habari ya Papa Mtakatifu bado pia iko kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Anasema afya Papa Francis yaimarika. Ni tofauti na what we see on the People Daily. Anasema leo ni siku ya 7 Papa yupo hospitali ya Gemelli kule Roma akiugua ugonjwa wa pumu au pneumonia. More on page 8 of this paper. Ishungwa Osoro wakata rufaa kujiokoa. Habari zilizo pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Anasema wapinga uamuzi wa mahakama kuwa Kenya Kwanza si muungano wa walio wengi. So the debate on the minority versus majority in the National Assembly persists. So wanasema Ishungwa na Osoro wakata rufaa kujiokoa. So they've filed an appeal against that ruling by the High Court. If at all it was that inconsequential, would they need to file the appeal? Watu wanatuambianga hapa mambo ya hewa. Hot air. Bayern. Oye. Kama watu wa Cielo. Oye. Bayern hoye. Nuksi kwa AC Milan UEFA. Munich waponea padogo kukosa kufuzu kwa raundi ya 16 bora ya soka ya Ulaya. Gazeti la Taifa Leo.
Business Daily. China secures majority of Kenya Adani type projects. Now, Chinese firms dominated their foreign peers in the big ticket projects under the Adani type public-private partnership, that is PPP deals in Kenya, pointing to their deep cash reserves and access to cheap loans from Beijing. Now, by the end of January, Chinese firms were linked to 5 projects valued at 190 billion Kenyan shillings, and that includes the country's first toll road, the Nairobi Expressway. Fresh disclosures by the PPP Directorate shows. Now, the value of the 5 projects Chinese firms were linked to by end of January, according to PPP Directorate, that is at 190 billion Kenyan shillings. Other stories there on the Business Daily. Mudavadi office denied extra 1.6 billion shillings in new budget. The Treasury has rejected Prime PCS Musalia Mudavadi's push to nearly triple his budget for the year starting July to 2.6 billion amid the quest to cut on extravagant spending in government. The office has been allocated 930.9 million for the year 2025-2026. Bado ni pesa mingi hiyo.
Pesa mingi.
Anyway, okay. Chaos erupts at MCA's meeting that was yesterday, and security personnel restrained members of the county assembly in that photo there after chaos erupted during the county assembly's forum meeting at KICC in Nairobi. The MCAs accused Nairobi County Assembly Majority Leader Peter Imwatok of gagging and intimidating them. On the ticker, Kenya defers full control of SGR operations. EAPCC is 10 billion shillings from sale of more land. French firm acquires Dudutech for 1.1 billion Kenyan shillings, and that's the Business Daily.
All right. So those are the local dailies, and we'll be discussing them with this gentleman after the break. Wilson Sosion, former MP and former SGKNUT, David Kiplagat MP Soy, and Dr. Peter Mbaye, leadership and governance expert. Do stand by for that, starting at 6:30. Before that, let's take a look at the cartoons this morning. Na pale kwenye karakacha, tunaanza na karakacha kwenye gazeti la People Daily. Na kuna karakacha pale, a caricature of do we call him now the AUC chairman candidate who lost? The former prime minister. I'm a former ODM party leader who's now back. Hatujui, because hata kwa hii cartoon wanasema hatuelewi.
Yes.
He's saying forward march, lakini kama kaptula imepinduka inaenda upande mwingine, kichwa kinaenda upande mwingine. Na pale commentator anasema he keeps us guessing on his next move. Actually, right now we are at a loss on what title to use for him.
Yeah.
Because is he back as ODM party leader?
Hajasema bado.
Hajasema. AUC tumeacha. So he's no longer AUC chairperson
Yes.
candidate. Tumewacha. So tunarejea kwa Raila Odinga, former prime minister.
Yes.
Okay.
Hadi aseme.
Hadi aseme. He's keeping us guessing in the meantime. Na hata sijui kama amerudi Kenya. That's a cartoon on the People Daily.
Daily Nation, complex housing levy puzzle. We see a caricature there of the CS Alice Wahome akijaribu kuwachorea hapo, waelezea how it's going. Affordable, not for profit. This is contribution, tax, you know, a lot of puzzle to, some puzzling to do there, you know.
For sale.
For sale.
There's a lot of
housing
doubts.
for sale, you know.
Is it a moot idea?
Doubt. A lot going on with the housing levy.
No clarity, but elewa, ile umekatwa kwa mshahara haikugarantii nyumba. Hiyo ni pesa imeenda kwa serikali.
Yes.
Kama tu pay. On the Star, same discussion. Now there are two ministries here involved. One, health ministry, na ule rafiki yako ule CS.
She has made it.
Yes.
I'll call her and tell her.
Bado watu wanashangaa isha inaitisha pesa haifanyi kazi, wanasema because she's asking for more money for sure. And Parliament ilisema they're asking for 77 billion shillings more to actually make SHA work. Yet tumekatwa 2.75% tayari kwa mshahara.
Yeah.
Mimi sielewi. Upande moja masuala ya SHA, upande mwingine housing. Wanasema we deduct, you pay.
You pay.
But what I deduct, but you pay. So they deduct for housing, but you still pay to own the house.
Yes.
They deduct for SHA, but they still want more money. And ukienda hospitali, utalipa pia. Cartoon on the Star. Sio sisi tumesema, ni we cartoonist. Ukitaka kama uko na maswali, uliza yeye.
Matters, this is standard, a caricature here of the president. Ametoa kaptula yake ya diplomacy amerusha huko.
Kama diplomacy ni kaptula ameitoa, amesema hiyo out the window, I don't need it.
Na international relations anaelekea kule, you know. Our picture right now is very bad on the international stage.
Yeah, na ni kama alikasirika hiyo mambo ya AU.
Yeah, AU.
That's why akakubalia watu wa Sudan kufanya vile walifanya hapa. But do you agree that that's the kind of move, or do you agree with the standard headline, reckless duo? As far as our international relations are concerned, we've thrown diplomacy out the window.
We're doing badly.
Yes.
And it's not only Sudan, even DRC is complaining that Kenya, we're favoring Rwanda more.
Even in on that debate about Israel and Palestine, same thing.
Yeah.
We took sides very early, unnecessarily again. So diplomacy, EOC.
We're jumping into conclusions.
So later on the show, we'll be having a different conversation.
We'll be talking about understanding infertility, both men and women, with Dr. Stephen Ngigi, a family medicine specialist, from 8 to 9.
Right, do stand by for that conversation. It's a very important one, understanding infertility. Later on, being a Fitness Thursday, we'll be having Nick, the gym instructor. Na watu ya Osielo watakuwa anainua.
I think you'll find somebody to do this show with. Unajua utafanya hivyo.
Ya Osielo, tayarisha kuinua chuma starting at 9 a.m.
Get out. All right, interact with us on our social media platforms, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and YouTube, on X at TV47 News KE. My handle is at Ann_Dida, and the hashtag is Morning Cafe.
My handle on X is at Freddy Ndimuli.
Stay with us.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50, going upward, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up.
Has responded to the recent declaration by the RSF, that is Rapid Support Forces, to form a parallel government in which took place in Nairobi, Kenya at KICC. In their response, Sudan accused the Kenyan government of endorsing and being complicit in the alleged crimes committed by the RSF in Sudan. Distinguished diplomats and citizens of Kenya have also voiced their concerns on social media regarding President William Ruto's diplomatic integrity, many arguing that their situation is escalating tensions between Kenya and other countries, especially Sudan, and is creating a diplomatic rift that may have dangerous consequences. In an official letter addressed to the Kenyan government, Sudan condemned the move, stating, and I quote, hosting leaders of the terrorist RSF militia and allowing them to conduct political and propaganda activities while they continue to perpetrate genocide, massacre civilians on an ethnic basis, attack IDP camps, and commit acts of rape constitutes an endorsement of and complicity in these heinous crimes. Sudanese leadership, which is currently under the control of a military junta led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, called this move another act of hostility against Sudan's sovereignty. They suggested that Kenya should have adopted a more diplomatic stance, employing a neutral approach instead of hosting such declarations. Sudan further emphasized, stating, and I quote, equally, this action by the Kenyan government not only violates the principles of good neighborliness, but also contravenes the pledges Kenya has made at the highest levels not to allow hostile activities against Sudan to be carried out on its own soil. It is, therefore, tantamount to an act of hostility against the entire Sudanese population. Kenya has, however, now responded to these allegations through Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi and a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, defending themselves by saying Kenya has committed to addressing the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, contributing $2 million to regional and global efforts already. Historically, Kenya has hosted refugees, including Sudanese civilians, in alignment with international obligations, with a strong track record of facilitating peace negotiations, such as the Machakos Protocol of the year 2002 that ended Sudan's civil war. Mudavadi saying that Kenya continues to offer a neutral ground for dialogue. The letter continued to note Kenya supports the need for a balance between security and a return to civilian rule in Sudan, aligning with the African Union stance on unconstitutional government changes. Kenya stands in solidarity with the Sudanese people in their pursuit of a peaceful future, ready to support efforts through regional frameworks like IGAD and the AU. Yesterday, the RSF gathered allied politicians and leaders of armed groups in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, where they announced to sign a charter to form a government of peace and unity. This would govern the territories under RSF control, effectively creating a parallel government in Sudan. Meanwhile, as these developments unfold, it has been reported that 200 more people have lost their lives in Sudan following an alleged attack by the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. Ruga Ival, TV47.
Yes, indeed. That's our biggest discussion this morning. That's a story we'll start with. It forms also the headline on the front page of the Standard, where the headline reads, "A reckless duo." They call it a diplomatic faux pas. The government seems to be playing down what everyone else sees as a diplomatic blunder. Hatuma said hosting the Rapid Support Force is a hostile act and should be condemned by the international community. However, a statement by Foreign Affairs CS Musalia Mudavadi seeks to justify the aligning with one side of the conflict as a process to bring stability in the region. That story is covered extensively on pages 4 and 5 of this paper. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning. Wilson Sossion, former member of the National Assembly and also served as Secretary General of the Great National Union of Teachers, KNUT. Karibu sana, Bwana Sossion.
Asante sana.
Dr. Peter Mbaye is also with us this morning, a leadership and governance expert. Good morning, Bwana Mbaye. Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, now, gentlemen, it would appear that of late, in recent weeks, we are talking about Kenya's diplomatic credentials over and over again. It's only a few weeks ago we were talking about our involvement in the DRC conflict and the perceptions that have been formed against Kenya. We've also come from an extensive, rather intensive diplomatic period as we were seeking the AUC chairman's post. And now, days after that loss, we're seeing Kenya providing a platform at the KICC for one side of the Sudanese conflict to set up a parallel government in Nairobi. Now, Bwana Sossion, we've been talking about diplomatic blunders. Do you agree with this headline?
No.
That this is probably a reckless move?
No. That also is reckless thinking by whoever designed it. I think we must accept as a country that we've been a haven of peace in the region, and all political groups engaged in self-determination in their respective countries have found a place called home here in Nairobi, and where peace deals have been hammered. And so the involvement in the main Sudan is not a new thing. The South have been in Nairobi for a long time. Garang was here for quite a long time, and his team. And so, to me, Kenya involving herself in bringing peace and seeking lasting solutions to silence the guns in Sudan is in the best interest of the people of Sudan and that of Africans. It's not a new thing that we've done. We've done this. We've engaged in peace and reconciliation activities. Remember, the Somali government, the president was even elected in a meeting at Grand Regents here in Nairobi, which was midwifed by Kenya. And eventually we have a stable sovereign state called Somali. The DR Congo, we have been having our troops. President Kenyatta has been involved in DR matters. But of course, there are complexities in conflicts in various countries that sometimes Kenya may not have the ability to really deal with it exhaustively. And we dealt with South Sudan, as I've mentioned, and many others. Getting involved with the Sudan.
Is the chair of the EAC. And from that position, many people would expect him that he would be a neutral arbiter, even in this conflict, because there's a junta in place in Khartoum. As a neutral arbiter, why would you allow one side of a conflict and provide a platform for them to form a parallel government in your space? Why would that be?
Did we not provide a platform for SPLA here in Nairobi? We did, and we took them to Naivasha, and they had to engage. They agreed, and they went home. And so South Sudan is because of Kenya, and we had them in Naivasha to hammer a deal, and the same case with Somalia. So at the end of the day, when you are dealing with conflict management, you talk to the different groups, and talking to one group in greater details and depths is okay. It's one step. President William Ruto is the chair of EAC, and he has a moral responsibility to convene meetings and engage groups in details as a president. And we also members of IGAD. Don't forget. And which other country has gone into very great lengths to engage any of the warring factions in Sudan other than President William Ruto?
Okay.
We have a duty to bring peace.
Dr. Mbaye,
and we have a duty to bring peace.
I understand, but in a situation we have two parties, antagonists. In such a situation, right now the other party is complaining that whatever happened in Nairobi, is a declaration of hostility from Nairobi. But Association suggests that this is a situation like the SPLA, SPLM conflict. But back then, I remember even in the Machakos process, both parties were involved in the talks. This time around, we're seeing one party being given space in Nairobi, and the other party is complaining that is actually unfair. Do you agree with this headline on the Star, that this was a reckless move by Nairobi?
This headline is very, very true. It is apt because, Fred, this is what we call principles of everything. There are principles on business, on politics, on war, on relationships, on everything. If you go against principles of international relations, there are some principles. Here let's talk about principles so that the person we are talking to can understand. If you break the principles on peace and conflict resolution or international relations, you are about to be broken by it. If you break any principles now, one of the basic principles in issues like this is what we call dialogue, consensus, bring people together, everybody feeling comfortable, right? Now, that's why already we have broken those rules. We have broken the principle because the moment I read in depth the statement from the Sudan Armed Forces, the General Burhan, and then I read the response by the minister here. It doesn't make sense. When you are accused of being a hostile partner, you are not trusted anymore. Remember, Kenya was thrown out of the Nairobi process because Sudan said they don't trust Nairobi. Already that's very important. We were thrown out. We are saying here we are peacemakers. We were thrown out. We couldn't be trusted because he said that there's a lot of personal relationship between the leader here, General Hamidi, and the president. So the Sudan people said we don't want. Look at a parallel. So that we try to look at what ails our IR, what ails our international relations, so that we don't just pick one thing and run with it. It's good for people to understand where we have come from. Look at what happened with us and DRC Congo. The same thing happened. We allowed some alliances to be launched in Nairobi. Immediately there was a diplomatic tiff, right? The ambassador was sent home. The same thing that happened with Sudan. The ambassador was recalled, our head of mission was summoned. Even today, the president of DRC has never accepted, the new ambassador because of the tensions. Surely, why is it we are messing in Somalia, we are messing in Sudan, we are messing in Rwanda, we don't know our relationship with Kagame, we are messing, it's not right. I mean, there is a problem. Let's first of all agree, principally, Fred, there is a problem with our foreign policy, a problem with how we relate with other nations, a problem with how we handle peace and conflict in the region. That has contributed to what you saw in Addis. Because there are some people who are thinking, we can't trust this. Remember, she killed now after he has never trusted Kenya. So he ran to SADC saying, I cannot get any justice from EAC. He's a member of EAC. He ran to SADC saying, I can't get any justice. And what happened? Ramaphosa and team, 16 countries, seemed to buy his idea. And they wrote that letter. And you saw the effect. So surely, whatever you try to do here, well, Kenyans can bear with you and say, fine, we cannot run away. We don't have another country. But the moment you take the bad manners to regional areas and international, you are going to be punished. So what we are saying, this is wrong. It breaks all the principles. If you want to be an arbiter, call everyone. But when you are seen to be hosting one arm in State House, right? And you have some suspected issues together personal, and then you use that to host, definitely it is dead. Actually, let me just put it, let me put it this way. Why even Kenya cannot have any deal over Sudan is that already we are suspected of being siding with one person. So it is done. Yes. We were kicked out of Sudan process. So all what we are seeing here is just trying to push, trying to force. Actually, I would rather we stop it because we are fueling the fire in Sudan. We would rather just say we are not involved because we cannot be trusted. Actually, they may take this process to maybe Tanzania or Rwanda or somewhere else. Okay. It is wrong. It's not right. And what we are doing, we are simply overexposing ourselves and our lack of capacity to be what we used to be many years ago. During the times of people like Kalonzo Musyoka, during the times of General Subeyo, what they used to do, how Kenya used to be perceived is no longer what we are today. And
it's good that you mentioned Kalonzo Musyoka, yes, and his efforts in as far as diplomatic relations where Kenya is involved are known. Bwana Sosion, do you agree? Because Bwana Mbaya has mentioned it, that and Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka also indicated that even our failure at the AUC last Saturday could have something to do with our diplomatic relations, that there's a long list of decisions made by this administration in matters diplomacy, even from the very first day after they were sworn in, by immediately recognizing the Sahrawi, much to the chagrin of Morocco and other countries around there. There's a long list of instances where President William Ruto has been criticized for his diplomacy, and that may have cost us the AUC elections on Saturday.
I think these are just but mere political arguments, but getting the lucid facts from the diplomatic office, the scenario is different. If we talk about this one of Sudan, there are Sudanese in Nairobi here who are seeking Kenya to intervene in peace and to seek for a platform that can allow parties and can allow the country to go back to peace. They are not coming here to seek for arms to go and escalate the conflict. There are millions of citizens who are displaced, homeless and in such situation. They can't afford and there's no security. That is a humanitarian crisis that should hurt everyone. And therefore, when you see people coming to Nairobi and seeking for assistance openly, all these meetings were done in the open, in public. And the Cabinet Secretary, Foreign Affairs, who is also the Prime Cabinet Secretary, has said very clearly that the intention of the meeting is to find lasting peace, the word lasting peace. It doesn't say to escalate the conflict. And therefore, the other parties within the Sudan should say...
forming a parallel government escalate the conflict? Because
no parallel government.
They were signing a charter to form a parallel government from Kenya. That's the issue.
That one, I've no knowledge of a government being formed from Nairobi.
Well, the story is actually on pages 4 and 5. And
look at the story, the statement from Musalia Mudavadi.
Kenya's decision to facilitate a Sudan militia group, the Rapid Support Forces, to declare the establishment of a parallel government is sending shockwaves in political and diplomatic circles. We reported on what was there at the
page 6. Let us now go to facts. Read page 6. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has defended Tuesday's meeting by Rapid Support Forces, saying it provided a platform for a lasting solution. We note that this is not the first time groups in Sudan have sought solutions to their crisis by leveraging the good offices of neighboring countries. Indeed, in January 24, parties and stakeholders to the Sudanese conflict met in a neighboring country to chart a way forward on inclusive dialogue and return to civilian
The meeting at the KICC was very clear about the intention, and they had even set aside Friday as a day to sign the charter for the establishment of a parallel government for Sudan based in Nairobi. That is the issue people are criticizing. They're saying, fine, you may provide a platform, but should they go to that extent?
RSF and Sudanese civilian groups tabling of a roadmap and proposed leadership in Nairobi is compatible with Kenya's role in... That is their proposal. That is their proposal.
Should we be party to
Kenya's?
For example,
that is their proposal.
If this was to happen to Kenya, that a neighboring country can provide a platform for people who oppose William Ruto to form a parallel government from there.
When you engage in conflict...
How do you justify that?
No. When you engage in conflict resolution, then people come seeking for assistance. They lay their proposals. This is one of the proposals. You can't stop them. The only thing that Kenya government cannot do today and in future, it doesn't matter who is the president, is to go and remove arms from its armory and give it to warring groups. We've never done that. We cannot do it. And the government of President William Ruto cannot do it. There is need to bring peace and silence guns in Sudan. That's a fact for sure.
Is this move necessary for Kenya, Dr. Mbaye? Is it something that Kenya feels obliged to do?
I think, let's 2 points quickly. Remember, Sudan had rejected Kenya's chairmanship to IGAD last year, June, I think, 23, because they said they are already taking sides. That's number one.
Who is now Sudan?
Another thing,
even when you talk of Sudan,
if you look at the statement from Sudan, they are saying, and this is very interesting, right, that already there was a high-profile meeting between some official from Sudan who came to meet the president, and they agreed. The president committed that they will not allow anything like that to happen on Kenyan soil. Now, when it happens, look, we are going to be seen going forward. I can tell you, Fred, nobody will take Kenya seriously going forward. You asked a question. Look at this is Sudan now, and ask yourself, why is it happening days after Addis Ababa? It's something that has been cooking. So much as we want to go show that we are good, already we are planning meetings, because that meeting, of course, it has been planned for weeks. It was not planned after Addis Ababa. So what are we doing? What is our conscience? What are we? What is Kenya like now going forward? Who is going to trust us anymore? Because remember, it happened days after. So much we are going to say, look, we are going to give us the chairmanship of AUC. We are going to be very good people. We are going to lead Africa. But already, meetings are being planned. So immediately we lose. We now show our true colors. That's number one. That is Sudan. Look at DRC. Another reason why we lost. Look at our intervention in Israel and Gaza. Was it necessary? What do we want from Israel? Like, okay, there's something called sometimes you take a neutral stance. Not for anything. You just watch. Because, I mean, it's not your country. Well, you are an ally. You want to be seen like an ally. But wanting to be seen like a blue-boyed eyes. Then at the and then you go and mess the interest of your country. It is called Kenya First. It is, what is our interest? How far? If we say Israel, what happens to our neighbors? We want votes of 21 Islamic countries that are leaning to Arab. You know, why can't we think ahead? If we wanted this chairmanship 2 years ago, we have caused a lot of blunders. It cannot work. We go into everything. Every conflict, we want to be there. Of course, we went to Haiti, we took ourselves there with all the problems we have. We took ourselves the issues of the problems with Russia, without that war. Now, we cannot be everywhere. And Adolf Hitler, why he lost the war, he opened so many battlefronts. We are everywhere. We want to show something, like we are the ones to go to Haiti. We are messing up. South Sudan is crying here. Yes. We don't know. We are not sure about our relationship with Kagame here. The other day, we are in another trouble. I saw you talk here about, Besije. So everybody is like, you mean you cannot be safe in Kenya? Because you are here one day, and then Besije is arrested from here. He came here, he's a refugee. I mean, we have known to host refugees. Let's agree in a nutshell, because we must talk things that people can take home. We are doing very poorly on our relationship with all other countries. Thank God we lost the EOC, because what would have happened? It's going to mess. In short, people saw through our intentions. People saw through. It's not possible to be trusted by other countries.
Do you agree that
it's not possible. We have a problem.
That this kind of perception, Bonasocion, may have, because some of the headlines this week were talking about who's to blame and what really happened in Addis Ababa. I know that was something close to you also. Do you think that our diplomacy and our international relations, to a huge extent, and the gaffes that we're talking about, contributed to the loss in Addis?
It may have, because as a country, we cannot be bystanders and insist on not getting involved in humanitarian matters, both regionally within Africa and globally. Kenya has been an unaligned state during the Cold War, but that non-alignment does not mean non-commitment. Those statements were made by Jomo Kenyatta, and we have had firm positions in terms of relationship with Israel. It didn't start yesterday. And our relationship with Israel is deep. It has been long. And therefore, the Kenyan government and President William Ruto taking a clear position on Israel is well advised, and it was the right thing to do. And if it did attract resentment from fundamentalist thinking and religious affiliations, so be it. We pay the price for the position we take, and that one we shouldn't even regret as a country, even if it means losing AUC seat.
So you do admit that we actually pay the price?
It's not everything. So no, just allow me. Just allow me. So our position on Israel is clear, very, very, very clear, and the president made it very clear, and that's not a new thing. It is what we have sustained from Jomo Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki administration, Uhuru administration. So really, even any future president will not vacate. Bring Israel, and others will always stand with Israel. That is that really is our position. We cannot promote terrorist activities all over and anywhere in the world. So if indeed the Arab-speaking countries within Africa, and we saw Mohammed Abbas, the president of PLO in Addis Ababa, it could have contributed very greatly, and it is a price we pay. There are moments when we pay prices for taking certain position. We are in Haiti, and no other African countries in Haiti, and not to show off, but there is need to help and stabilize the people of Haiti. Those are human beings, and if we have the capacity and infrastructure, we must give it out. We are in Congo, DR Congo, but we have not taken arms to give to M23 or any other group.
Our embassy in Kinshasa was burnt down, meaning there's already perception in DRC that Kenya is a
where
big
there are
partisan.
conflicts, there will always be conflicts. And as a country, tell me, which country within the East Africa or within the Sub-Saharan Africa has capacity to bring peace and allow warring groups to and mediate between warring groups other than Kenya?
Are you saying that the things
Kenya
you've
will have
engaged
to
in,
take
it is
that
actually
position.
necessary for Kenyans to engage in all these things?
Kenya
It is out of necessity.
Kenya is a democratic superpower within the continent. and is a country that has facilitated peace. And we feel we must facilitate peace when called for, and we shall do it. And if that position is going to cost AUC, which is a temporary thing, or any other thing that will cost us, so be it. But we must take a firm position.
Dr. Mbaye, is it naivety or lack of experience? This administration has only been there for 2.5 years. Are we saying that President William Ruto, in terms of international relations, because the cartoon behind you shows that he has thrown diplomacy out the window, is it naivety in as far as international relations are concerned?
I think in summary, it is naivety, lack of knowledge, lack of being grounded. That is a word. Being grounded in matters IR, in matters foreign policy, and what we have been known for years, peace and conflict, you know, like habitats, lack of being grounded. And sometimes one man thinking, you know, this is what I think. So all the advice from the diplomats, people who have been there for 20 years, 30 years, is not listened to. And that's number one. But number two, which is very important, so that the word is meddling. You know, meddling is you are not needed. You may not be needed. The world can go on without you, but you find yourself there because of a mixture also of private interest. That's what I see. A lot of mixture, a lot of allegations about General Mohammed and deals with UAE, issues about lithium in DRC. There are many things coming up. So there are a lot of, instead of being the issue of diplomatic stance, there is a mixture of personal interest. That's what I see, and this is very serious as a country, because we are going to lose it. We are going to lose it badly. But he mentioned about EAC being a temporary seat. No. AUC was a very important position for us. Remember, it goes with rotation. But next time we are going to have it here, we don't know when. So it's important. Let's not know. The AUC was very important. But now, Fred, look here. Once we begin hearing things like, did we have the right candidate in the first stance? Why did we pick on the one we picked? Was Uhuru on the card, the former president? Was Jakaya Kikwete on the cards? Now we begin even looking at, did we have the right candidate? We begin from there. As a region. Then, as a region, how did we execute it? All these things of meddling, suspicions on being one-sided, all those other things. So I can tell you this, the loss of AUC in a nutshell, Fred, was an embarrassment to Kenya. It is not ought to be. It ought not to have been there. Fred, we have people who have done intelligence in this country. People who sit in the morning just to analyze intelligence, what is South Africa saying, what will happen. For the last 3 months, we have been talking about simple factors. Simple. And we have been saying here, we were here last week, we said factors that may contribute very clearly. Issues on Francophone, it happened. Issues on Islamic agenda, it happened. Issues on being a secret vote, issues of SADC, the last minute, issues on all those issues. We said, so how do we rush with a lot of bravado, sending teams to celebrate before? Now, Fred, who does that? Who advises us on image? Forget about, maybe people may not understand what is foreign policy, maybe, but who advises us on image? How do we go? People who are leaders. Remember, these are not people we pick from the streets. These are leaders, people who know law a bit. They are leaders. They sit in Senate, they sit in the National Assembly, they sit in the COG. To go and do placards and begin shouting in the streets of Addis Ababa, who teaches us manners? Surely, we are being embarrassed. We feel very bad. Remember, there are many people, hundreds of diplomats paid by the Kenyan taxpayer to just advise, but the advice is not taken. Now, when I see people blaming Nordin. And this guy cannot defend himself. Let me just for 1 minute defend him, because he cannot. Please, there's one thing to give advice and to give intelligence is another thing for that intelligence to be taken up. So definitely, the kind of resources that guy has, he must have given, not once, twice, or thrice. But the people you are giving the advice to, they may decide to trash it and go do placards, go celebrate, do more, just go dance. Now, the presidents, all of them, have access to WhatsApp. They could see the dancing, the celebration, even if for no other reason. That's one of the things that we lost. We are so much thinking they are superpowers. You remember the Mackenmede effect? You know, this thing of, you know, we are the guys, you know, we'll go, touch some buttons, touch, and every Africa will bow, you know, Africa will bow to us and we are going to get a seat. Please, we played a diplomatic battle politically.
Okay.
That's how we lost.
I heard somewhere that you may have been spotted in Addis. Do you agree that part of our behavior there, even as Kenyans diplomatically,
it messed everything.
You know, the Tari here is trying to enjoy a lot of fodder from nothing. And that fodder is not nutritious to his agenda. And the residual effect of his argument is that you are not going to change the diplomatic policy of Kenya. No president reconfigures international diplomacy where there are clear pillars of foreign within the foreign affairs, including international diplomacy, with grounded professionals within that space, and therefore saying the advice is not being taken, I think is very misleading, because you don't have clear information on how the technocrats and the experts have been working within that space. So for me, Kenya is not going to, and any other president coming after Ruto, we are not going to vacate our role of being an honest country.
A neutral arbiter.
An honest country, a neutral arbiter. Why did we have groups of South Sudan? They came, they quarreled, they were in Machakos, and finally Lazarus Sumpeyo dealt with them, they had an agreement.
But both sides of the conflict were represented around the table.
And right now, the conflict even in South Sudan is being supervised by the president. That is what many people don't know. And it concerns the president, and it's a responsibility.
South Sudan.
It's a moral duty. That is South Sudan. And the DR Congo is a responsibility. Now our president is the chair of EAC. But then if the SADC and Ramaphosa's and other business cartels have gotten in, and there are many other detailed issues that are not known, and the M23 are being believed to be supported from Kagame's side in Rwanda, it's something that needs to be dealt with. These are deep conflicts. It's easy to argue on this table, but to understand the details of what goes on and the humanitarian suffering, which must be stopped, it requires people to be bold.
Okay.
And so as a country, we must be bold and face the consequences, deal with the consequences as we move on, because Kenya is not shutting down after this. Kenya will move on, and it will continue being available to the rest of the countries within Africa. We are a democratic superpower, and we are a superpower of peace within the continent. We've never, Fred, we've never used the resources of the citizens of Kenya to supply arms to warring groups. That the country will not do. And those who want to come, let them come. There is nothing wrong with entertaining one side and creating that platform. Let the other group also come. So I would say in a nutshell, so that we don't argue. So that we can argue. No, Daktari, allow me. You can't give Daktari all the time.
I want us to finish this discussion about diplomacy.
Then allow me. I have not finished because you gave him all the time.
Go ahead.
Give me my time. Let me summarize it this way. In both regional and international issues, Kenya will have a definite position. We've taken a position on Israel. We are not regretting. We'll pay the price. We've taken a position on Haiti. We are not turning back. We'll have to help Haiti within the framework of the UN. It's not a Kenyan decision. It's the UN. We've taken a position on DR to bring peace within the framework of EAC, and to bring all parties, even if SADC will be part of it. That process will have to go on. There are peace processes within South Sudan. That is not going to stop. Somalia, remember during Kibaki's time, we deployed our troops to Somalia within the AMISOM and all that, and Kenyan soldiers did a fantastic job. We have no regrets. And we have been involved in peace missions. Talk of Sierra Leone, talk of Namibia, talk of even in Europe, we've been there, and as Kenya, that is Kenya, and that is what defines ourselves. Those who are trying to caution and pull us to a corner of non-commitment, are doing injustice to this country. And post Addis, President William Ruto and Raila Odinga will continue, and they've demonstrated that they are great statesmen, and they've taken the country to a frontier that we've never been. Though we lost, we gained because we've discovered who we are. We are a strong democratic superpower. We now need to unite the country, bring everyone on board, including Daktari. People like Daktari, they need to reconfigure their brains. And if they feel they are valuable in helping the foreign policies, we now need all hands on deck and on the board.
And Fred, this is very important. Number one, please, let's not leave this show talking about that Kenya is a diplomatic what did you say? Some diplomatic superpower.
And it's a diplomatic superpower in Africa.
I feel pained as a practitioner of peace and conflict studies. That's not true. We actually right now a diplomatic embarrassment as we speak today. It's not true.
Those are your political statements.
Secondly,
it's not what you like.
Secondly, justification why we went to Israel. How many countries are there in the world? How many went to? How many said anything about? Some of them are more passionate than Israel than ourselves. So let's stop there. The whole issue is that we are getting it wrong, and we are getting it wrong. Now, he spoke something about post Addis, Fred, in 1 minute. Post Addis, I want to state here again, as a student of political science, Raila Amolo Odinga is one man we have studied since every book we have studied in political science. We must respect our elders in a big way. Raila Odinga is somebody you can never ignore. I said that on record. He is welcome back here. Now that has gone now, whatever gaffes we did to make him lose the seat, because we would have done better. We are here now. We want to see what we can move on doing because our son is still our son. We are going to have a look at what is going to happen here. The issues we are hearing is going on in Parliament. The constitution of the committees, we know, of course, what will happen is that he will come and say, now I'm a big brother, I want half of government. That's what we expected to see in the coming days. He will say, okay, fine, now I'm here. It's not that maybe if I went, I would have said, you have paid me off. But how I am here, we expect half of government to go. And the people like us who contributed to this government will be out of government, then other people will come in. Is a whole issue.
That is the aftermath of
that is now, yes, that is a post-Addis.
That's a discussion we are going into, so we can proceed with that.
Yeah, we can proceed with that. Post-Addis, this is what we are going to see. The ODM team is going to demand half of government, right? So we are going to see maybe some reshuffles from the CSs, from the PSs. Remember, PSs is under the wraps. We're waiting to see who is likely to benefit. And of course, everything from, remember, the ambassadors. There has been a talk of being reshuffled. Not yet. We are going to see that coming up. Parastatal heads, board members of the parastatals, we are going to see a whole government with a 50-50 arrangement going forward. Many PSs are going to lose their jobs, of course, because many of them came during the Kenya Kwanza arrangement, where a lot of Mount Kenya people are involved. So we're going to see a lot of things happen. Now, whether that carries up to 27 is another story altogether.
It's a different story altogether.
It's another story altogether.
We have a story packaged by one of our reporters on Washout at Addis, the aftermath. Now that we are in that discussion, let's watch that story and come back and continue with this discussion. All right. So yes, while we are still on that, we are seeing what's happening in Parliament as we wait for that story to be ready. Definitely everything will shift. And last week we were talking about how things will be different if Raila Odinga is not successful at Addis Ababa. We're already seeing what's happening in Parliament. ODM is claiming leadership of some of the crucial committees of Parliament. And on the front page of the Star, you talk about how ODM could take over Ruto's tax burden. But before we even get to that, do you agree that now Raila Odinga is back and things are going to change significantly, including what he has just indicated, that ODM could just claim half of everything in government?
You know, Professor here is the grounded scholar in his area of discipline, but he's misapplying his knowledge to suit his political emotions of the moment and is trying to mislead. It's good we become factual. When we are going to this, we are going for a vote. And a vote, you win or lose. And Raila Odinga, while at Bomas, he said, I'm going to this. If I clinch the seat, we shall have won. If I don't clinch the seat, we shall have won, because we've made the best case. And the president did his best to support. To me, these are two great statesmen who came together to expand the the horizon of influence of the people of Kenya to Addis. Though it never worked, there will be another generation that will come, and they'll have their chance one day, whether it comes 40 or 50 years from now. That chance will come. And post-Addis, there are compelling demands and reflections within the country. If you hear scholars, people, politicians and leaders thinking about the post-Addis, it is out of lessons born out of Addis that indeed, when you look at the credentials of Raila Odinga, Africa needed a strong leader with strong political infrastructure so that we can break barriers that have tied us to the shackles of confusion for a long time. And that was Raila Odinga.
Now that
it never worked. If it never worked, and that is a product of Kenya, and we've seen they did it with the president, they worked together, and in any democratic setup in Africa, you can find people who are opponents in an election agreeing to do something else the next day, and life moves on.
And that's what we're looking at. That is President William Ruto and Raila Odinga.
Now, and that brings me now to the chemistry of our politics in Kenya, vis-a-vis the democratic practices that we practiced over the years. That is why I'm saying we are a democratic superpower as Kenya. And if you want to know, go around these countries in Africa, you'll feel like coming back here and you appreciate home. Now we are appreciating our country. And this is what is going to happen. And look at me without blinking an eye. There will be more engagements to strengthen the country politically and stabilize the political ecosystem, inclusivity, which the president has been talking about. When he talked about broad-based government, people thought it was a joke. And the president has really moved in pragmatically and taken action. Our president.
Are you able to paint a picture for us?
And
you
know, and you already know that there are 5 ministers from 5 cabinet ministers, and not just cabinet ministers, former deputy party leaders of ODM, Hassan Joe and Oparanya. They're in government and they're working. Former minority leader Opiyo Wandayi, he's in government. Former chairman of ODM is in government as a minister.
We expect more of that. That's the question. Going
more
forward.
will happen.
So you do agree with Dr. Mbai that ODM could actually claim half of all the positions in government?
No, the numbers by Dr. Professor here, let me call him Professor, are misleading. Nobody knows the responsibility of deciding how to configure Kenya and how to accommodate Kenyans in the broad-based arrangement going into the future, because now this is a practice.
There are risks involved.
The responsibility rests with the president. And
there are risks involved.
And trying to say now ODM have come to demand. ODM cannot demand because they've been part of the broad-based.
Okay.
There will be, let me tell you, you want facts. There will be engagements and there will be continuous structuring of
ceding of ground by.
Of course, you must cede ground.
Okay.
Because
let's watch this story.
How do we intercede on peace missions outside Kenya when we cannot make peace with ourselves, including Professor here?
Allow us to play this story so that you can set the stage for our continued discussion here.
The debate over Raila Odinga's defeat in securing the African Union Commission chairmanship has become the latest hot-button issue. As the blame game intensifies, questions are being raised about Kenya's image abroad, with Nairobi County Senator Edwin Sifuna suggesting that the country's image may have cost Raila the position. He links President Ruto's leadership style to regional conflicts in neighboring countries.
You have people who are threatening peace and stability in a neighboring country, and then you grant them, a stage for them to be able to perpetuate this division in their own homes. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, you have this Pan-Africanist who believes in democracy, who believes in the democratically elected government in the DRC, and then you have your own country, the sponsoring country.
Senator Richard Onyonka has also weighed in, claiming that Kenya's diplomatic relations with other nations have failed.
Yes, they celebrated because they are fearful. They want Raila to come back because the country looks unstable and it's not ready to move on. That is where we are, Honorable Cherargei.
Meanwhile, Wednesday's Senate session erupted over the manner in which MPs and other politicians traveled to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia for the AU elections. Concerns are now being raised over the significant government spending supporting Raila's candidacy, with questions about who authorized these funds.
How much money was spent on the campaign? Was it private money? Was it public money? And if it was public money, who authorized it? Was it in the budget of Parliament, or was it in some mischievous arrangements?
This comes after images surfaced of political leaders leaving it up in Ethiopia. In defense, some senators quickly clarified on the Senate floor that they had funded their own trips.
Especially from the ODM party. Some even traveled by bus through Moyale to go. And the reason why they went there is because of the love for Baba.
Now, Kenya Kwanza MPs are putting pressure on President William Ruto to include Raila in his expanded government, but Speaker of the National Assembly Moses Wetangula has downplayed the whole narrative.
I do not know, and I don't think so, because the commitment of friendship and political realization and camaraderie.
Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
All right. So, yes, they talked about what we had already discussed, the issue of diplomacy and who was to blame. But now on the issue of Raila coming back, that changes a lot. Just before the AU process, the election, we had already seen some upheaval in Parliament with the ruling on minority vis-a-vis majority. But now it would appear that ODM is emboldened, probably by the AUC process and the aftermath, and now once more. Now my question is, could there be a risk even for ODM? Because on the front page of the Star today, they talk about why ODM could take over Ruto's tax burden. They already have the Treasury. Now they seek to control some very crucial committees, including what they are seeking and what we understand, it's yet to be decided, the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Seeing the kind of discussion on the budget-making process last year and what led to the Gen Z revolution, is ODM being cautious enough not to be on the wrong side of history this time round?
Thank you very much. Let me paint a very clear picture in a big way what's likely to happen from now going forward. And I think we alluded to this last time. One, they have been emboldened by the court, the High Court decision about them being majority, and then AUC. We said last week, one thing the president must do is to appease ODM at whatever they want. He'll go all the way. He'll go all the way because that's what is left. But with Mount Kenya gone on this side, or left only with Rift Valley, he must do whatever he must do to appease ODM. Now, this is what is going to happen. First, he's going to give away most of those committees. Definitely, yes. He's going to give her everything. The way remember Gen Z, what did he say? What did he do? Take over even Treasury. Right away, take whatever you want. Treasury, all this key ministry, they went because he was under attack and he had to survive, right? That's why he tried to go to Mount Kenya and pick a few ministers, which on the ground may or may not have any value. But now, he's going to give out many committees, number one. Number two, he is going to reconstitute government, like I said. You are going to see, if not 50, 45 is going to go to ODM. And I mean highest levels. It may go to DP. It may or may not, because he may think, let me not go to DP, but maybe Prime Minister. And I said here, I was the first one to say there's an article report which has never been spoken of for the last 2 years. It's been kept somewhere. You are good. Look at the talk now. It's already been discussed. And now, that's number one. Maybe Prime Minister, some ministers, more of them, many PSs, enough. Out of 52, he may get up to 20, depending on the number that's going to come back, right? Now, you're going to see there has been a team that has been reconstituted for the last 3 months, waiting for this, for ambassadors and high commissioners. You're going to see a lot of people recalled. You're going to see Raila getting very key positions. Right now, there's what we call cluster A for ambassadors. You're going to see ODM getting very many of them. And chairman of parastatos, members of the boards, like 600 of them, he may get 100 or so. Now, that is number one. However, you are going to see people like Sifuna, Babu Owino, the young people in Azimio, who think that this is dangerous for them to back the government. You'll see them taking a trajectory with the support of Baba, but quietly. Of course, he is the SG, and he's saying he doesn't mind anything because he's going to get off. If the worst comes to the worst, and he's chased off, which I don't see, because I don't think Raila is going to resist Sifuna. But Babu Owino and others who think about their lives, You know, they are arguing, these are the people who go to government. You know, they have served, governors. Some of them were ministers before. They're in their sunset years. But us, we are young. We need to build our careers. You're going to see that. Now, this is very important. ODM may not rust because there's one thing consistent with ODM. They like being on the side of the people. At the end of the day, towards the ballot, they don't like being sided, to be seen to be with it. The mess they did with Uhuru Kenyatta, they are now going to repeat because they agreed to be rebelled government. It cost them the presidency. This time now they said we are going to get to government because already last time we were labeled, we were not in government. But then whether they are going to finish in 27 because of the mood. Remember, Raila is one person who consumes intelligence. He knows what Gen Zs are saying. He knows what's going to happen in 27. So most likely we are going to see ODM at the last minute. They will just get out. Okay. They'll just get out of this and happen. Now, but let me finish here. On the other side, what is going to happen? Yesterday, you saw Kalonzo Musyoka. You saw Rigathi Gachagua. You saw Eugene. Matiang'i is being waited. He's still finishing his contract somewhere where he's finishing his work. You're going to see a lot of emboldened opposition coming together, okay, putting numbers together, planning about the 2027. So those are the two teams that are going to be working together there, yeah? And I want to suggest here, the system, unfortunately, Fred, it's good for me to say this because it's good to play these things of politics and government. Unfortunately, the system today still believes there's no problem in Mount Kenya. Now, when I say that, you know what I mean. They still believe that, Mount Kenya, well, it's something that has been created. They're okay somehow. And they think that Mount Kenya goes not for the individual, they go for positions. That's why the DP position was given to Mount Kenya. Okay. That's what they think. Now, that's another brander. So they think that the problem is Rigathi Gachagua as a person, not the community. What I want to say today is good because we are talking. I can tell you, Mount Kenya people, they don't shout. They never do madamano. They just know this happened, but the Editorial happened, they are quiet. I can tell you, 90% of Mount Kenya is gone. Now, how the president is going to navigate all this towards 2027 with the pressure of ODM, because they decided this time we must eat first before we vote out. Now, those are the realities. I have just painted a very simple picture of what is going to happen in Kenya.
Based on what Dr. Mbaya said, don't you think that President William Ruto is now at a much weaker position? Having lost Mount Kenya, now ODM demanding more. If they bolt out at some point, don't you think that he'll be too exposed?
If the president was to concern himself about 2027 and some temporary emotional political bitterness founded on philosophies that does not advance the transformation and unity of the country, is not going to work. The president is concerned about key fundamental issues to move the country forward. The transformation agenda.
Stability of his government being one of them.
Listen, no, just allow me. You've asked. You've allowed him.
I'm just contributing to your comment. No, stability of government is something very key for William Ruto.
It's key. You've allowed him to speak all what he thinks, all the negative imagination
and now you get
that he can imagine from the rest of the world. But when I get the same time, you want to
disrupt. It is your time now.
You want to disrupt. Yes. So allow me. The president is not going to begin running around and panic over the 2027 because of some political emotions of one or two individuals and intimidation that, Mount Kenya is gone. Mount Kenya is in Kenya. They're in Kenya and they're Kenyans. And they're within the government of President William Ruto square. And they're part of this government. That's a fact. And so what the president developed, the broad-based, listening to Kenya. And he did not start the broad-based after the 25th of June last year, activities of the Gen Z. He did not. His philosophy made it from day one when he was sworn in at Kasarani, that we are going to unite this country and overcome barriers of ethnicity, exclusion, and regional politics. He made it, and to me, that is very fundamental. And coming from Addis and the journey that President William Ruto has worked with Raila Odinga, and Raila Odinga made it very clear that it is not William Ruto who told me to vie for the AUC. It is me, Raila Odinga. I decided. I only sought for support of William Ruto, the president, because he's also a voter. And he voluntarily and willingly supported me. And that is what he did. And that's not a crime. The great thing from Addis Ababa is that unity won. The victory from Addis Ababa from Kenya is that unity won, and that unity will come to the country. And those imagination that, oh, this group has gone here, this group has gone there, that has gone there. The president has the responsibility as the foremost statesman of the country, because he's not just a political leader, but he is a statesman who is sworn in. He has the responsibility for every minute he's in that office, pending elections of 2027, to unite the country. And that is going to do. And some of these little things, emotions and happenings and meetings, it is democracy.
You call them little things, but it comes at a cost. This unity comes at a cost.
So therefore,
how costly will
unity
it be?
Comes at a cost. If we are trying to bring peace in Sudan, and you can see the type of reaction, those are expected challenges. And that process will go on. It will be very costly.
Could it eventually be too costly for
us to unite the country here? You must practice a lot of concession and be reasonable and be flexible. And so saying, oh, ODM will come and demand this, oh, this is what will happen, those are just mere projection. But I think the most fundamental thing a president must do is to unite the country, bring the people together, and there will be the naysayers. The naysayers will have their democratic space. That's how we have worked in this country. Those who want to poke holes and predict how things will get worse and what should have been done and what should not have been done. We are a country that accommodates critics. So the likes of Sifuna, the likes of Babu Awino, they are free also to think the way they are thinking, to engage. Because at the end of the day, we are in one common political ecosystem that determines the transformation of the country that is going to affect everybody. President William Ruto, let me finish. President William Ruto is not going to promote exclusion. Never.
Okay.
And exclusion has been this thing called winner takes it all. You win an election as a president, you take your group and
notwithstanding
exclude
the fact
the others.
That
is
the
not going
president
to work.
himself had said
So
he
that
would not
then,
have such kind of arrangement with Raila Odinga.
So that you don't engage in guesswork here.
Okay. There's a question I'd asked you, Dr. Mbai, and I don't think I got an answer. It's about the risk for ODM, because that's what we're talking about here. The looming takeover of powerful parliamentary committees by Raila Odinga's allies could be a double-edged sword that could transfer the taxes and budget baggage to the opposition. Yeah, they may be excited that they are now taking over very many committees, but that could come with a downside, because the Gen Z revolution last year was basically around the budget-making process, which we are now engaging in. That could be a risk for ODM. Do you think they're seeing that? That probably the excitement around taking over the treasury and the budget-making process could end up damaging the party?
First of all, ODM line now, or Azimio, if I may call it, they are down emotionally. They are hurting, right? So what happens? They will first cling to whatever is available, because the president will dish out everything. So they will, for now, they will cling to it, because you see that unity thing at Addis, the dinner, now we are more stronger. That's a saying. But deep inside, we are like tumechezwa tena, like another time again. Uhuru promised us, we are going to be president. It didn't happen again this time. So they are hurting. That's a fact. But you see, you sometimes want to put a brave face. And Sifuna said as much. So this is what's going to happen. You are going to see they are going to take all this position because of the excitement. They are going to take everything, budget, everything. Now remember, there is a Didi Nyoro factor. That's another story altogether. I can tell you, the Mount Kenya is waiting for Didi Nyoro to be officially out. That's another story altogether that needs another headline. So we are going to discuss about that today. So after they are going to take all these positions for a year or two. Now you are going to see two teams from Azimio. One that is going to be in government, chairing the committees, being CSs, being PSs. Many are lined up. Because they are saying, remember, they decided, unlike last time when they were advising the Uhuru Kenyatta, when they were out of government, they decided this time they will eat first, so that they don't lose everything. But I can tell you, you are going to see another line led by Sifuna. The Secretary General, he's going nowhere. But he'll continue poking holes within to say, we are not in government. We are not eating. You can see the kind of speeches that you saw yesterday. Sifuna will continue so that when 26 comes, now, looking at the mood of the country, Sifuna will move on and Baba will follow him.
I can tell you, there's something Sifuna said, Baba, you told me to continue on this trajectory. And when you come back from AUC, I'll give you ODM. I'll give you back ODM, the ODM that is supposed to be ODM. Those were very telling statements. In political analysis, you look at every word. Every word means a whole chapter, right? So you're going to see two things. They are not going to allow to be swallowed. Sifuna will continue talking like he's in opposition. And he's with Akina Babuino. They are all on record. They are all sent to do exactly that. So this tax burden is going to be like a year or two for now, because they feel we must first of all do something. PSs must come. We must have board chairs, right? But I can tell you, towards 26, Laila is one man who is, it happened last year, and what I know, they are not going to allow it to happen again, where they are going to be caught flat-footed. They will jump to be on the side of the people. Okay. That one I can assure you. And closely related to that, because that is important, it is related somehow. If you noticed, when the president went to Ishaweri, the image that came is like Uhuru was on his side. And he rushed to appoint members who are perceived to be Uhuru's allies. Never mind, that was not the deal. That's why you saw, like 2 weeks passed before some of them even acknowledged. If you looked at it, 2 weeks. Imagine you are nominated as yes, and you're not in a hurry to say thank you or to accept it, because they had to call Uhuru to ask, are you the one? He said no. Because when Ruto went there, the president said, you are the president, do what you want. Me, when they called to say, were you the one who gave our name? Said, I am not the one. That's why you see, the president camp was very mad. Former president's camp, the fourth president, they were very mad. And later, who made some suggestion to say, Gen Z, go and fight, to say, I was not part of this deal. But the president took advantage of that. Now, quickly, after Addis, you saw some serious government bloggers. They came out with a narrative that the fourth president went and camped at Addis and tried to talk to the presidents not to vote for Baba. Look at that. Look at the connection. Why? Because they have discovered Uhuru is not in their camp. Now, what is Uhuru going to do? Again, because that's a good factor, Fred. Now, for the president, will be at the coalition level. All the parties under the formation of Kalonzo, Matiang'i, Wetangula, not Waikara, but Eugene Wamalwa, and the party that Mount Kenya is waiting, led by Rigathi Gachagua. Now, they are going to strengthen themselves. That you see a lot of rebranding, like what's going to happen to Martha Karua. On 5th, Rigathi Gachagua is going to launch his own party. They will strengthen their parties across the country. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta will be there like the Baba in the opposition to now look at now how the arrangement will go for the presidential candidate, right? The deputy and all those other positions. Now, it has come out clearly that Uhuru Kenyatta is not on their side. He's actually here. We are waiting for him as the father of the nation from this side to come and now put together the coalition up there. That's going now to actually the candidate for the coalition on the opposition rather now. We will not vie on individual parties. It's going to vie on that coalition.
I think that's a different conversation. Probably we should.
It is very deep. So to go back here, therefore, I wanted to paint the picture what is likely to happen going forward. So Baba is going to move in and then notice that, because remember there are 7 million Gen Zs who don't have votes, who are going to take votes, remember, and there are another 8 million young people who never voted last time. All those are going to go to vote against. They are going to be in the opposition. That is the scenario, Fred.
And ODM will want to be on the side of the people. You've been a member of ODM.
Definitely.
You know how that party operates.
Nominally, when the president was
you know how that party operates. Yes, there's a lot of excitement in taking up these positions, but that's not the DNA of ODM. They've never been on the side receiving criticism about how government works.
Now, allow me to rebut on the general comments is making, is trying to...
And I know he's really going deep about the planning for 2027. I'm trying to focus on this.
But I'll use very few sentences to say, yes, it is his democratic right to imagine some big political hell befalling the country. But I tell you, those are just but imaginations and dreams that will not happen. It will not happen. It's good to imagine that way, and it's good to think that Uhuru is doing this, so-and-so is doing that, or because bloggers did this. Now we have sunk so low that we even want to pay attention to bloggers in the social media. We are a serious country. We are a serious country. Let us focus on serious things. I'm not on any payroll. I'm a Kenyan and of good standing, and you know.
They are senior people.
I'm a Kenyan of good standing, and even them, they're also trying to keep themselves busy.
And time is really running out.
Now, now come to ODM. Do you know that ODM is very grounded political party. And ODM derives its genetic behavior from Raila Odinga, the party leader. Do you know ODM was started by Raila Odinga and William Ruto? Do you know URP is a chip-off, was a chip-off from ODM? And even when UDA exited the Jubilee Party, you still hear Jubilee, it just died, it vanished. And when UDA exited Jubilee and formed itself as a big UDA, do you know its genetic coding can still be traced to ODM? If you look at the philosophies of ODM and UDA and even the agenda, these parties are social democratic parties, and therefore their philosophies and likings, they will continue working together. And I don't know whether he is not seeing the similarities, the democratic similarities of ODM and UDA and the leaders working together. And now you want to wish that, oh, going forward, Raila will do this, he'll walk out, these guys will take positions and do that. Now, ODM in parliament, and let me tell you about our parliamentary system. It doesn't create opposition and government. It creates minority and majority. And the leadership of the houses, of the committees, it doesn't say you exclude minority. It doesn't. Leadership of the houses is conducted democratically through a vote by the members of that committee.
But there are traditions in the House that some committees are left to the minority side as far as the leadership is concerned.
It is only that by design that the majority of numbers are normally agreed and they put in their chairs. But that can be vacated. It is not the standing orders. Any member of parliament, whether you are in WIPA, whether you are in ODM, whether you are UDA,
Has it ever happened that the budget and appropriations
listen to
committee is
me.
chaired by someone
Listen,
from the
because you want
minority
this
side?
fact. Now that you want this fact, any member of parliament can chair a committee.
Any
and
committee?
so, yes. And so, if it is so decided that because of our numbers, we can elect other members of other political parties to chair committees, it will happen. That one will happen. And so, if these rumors you are hearing here, that ODM will get some seats to chair committees, or even WIPA, if there is any, because we are seated here tomorrow, this is a country where negotiations is open. Tomorrow you can find Kalonzo Musyoka is part of the broad-based government. And there are negotiations and there are agreements. There are gives and take. In negotiation, there is what you call give and take. For that moment, it will happen. So it doesn't have to look like, oh, so ODM is losing credibility because of accepting. No. Who said ODM existed not to chair committees in parliament? Who said ODM existed not even to have ministers in the cabinet? Who said that ODM existed not to have permanent secretaries in government? And who said Raila Odinga exists to stay out there without working in mainstream government? And if President William Ruto intentionally mainstreams everybody and the people he thinks, including Raila and the rest, to work in government for purposes of transforming the country, so be it. The key agenda in the lips of the president, in the mind of the president, is transforming the country. And one fourth statesman outside the president who understands where the country must go, and who has the widest, the greatest, and the deepest political experience is Raila Amolo Odinga. This is our best statesman in the country. The president recognizes as such. He is working with the president for the good of the people. Let me tell you, Fred, you are seated on that chair as an anchor today. 50 years down the line, someone else will be here.
Yes.
And so we must set traditions that can outlast us. And so when the two statesmen, President William Ruto and Raila Odinga, are coming with Addis Ababa experience, the journey they have traveled to take Kenya to the next level, I think we need to tone down. And Professor here, and if you think your knowledge can help the country, it should have the knowledge not to really create some hell,
beyond
but
the politics.
Some hope.
Beyond the politics, there's one conversation that I'd really,
for the country.
just a little time, and it's still on the budget-making process, away from the politics, away from what the AUC has done, and away from ODM and what will happen to Kenya Kwanza and the administration. This is on the back page of the Daily Nation, and it talks about the budget-making process, alarm of a 68 billion shilling gap for HIV primary healthcare. Now, this is purely a result of the withdrawal or the shutting down of the USAID by President Trump. It's also linked to a budget-making process because now you're seeing a shortfall.
Bill.
Yes. And the
when finance bill dies.
Yes. And going forward, because we've depended too much on donor funding for key provisions and key sectors like health and education. Now we're seeing that Kenyans are staring at the risk of dying from HIV, lack of vaccines and blood transfusion after the Treasury failed to allocate 68 billion shillings for procurement of essential medical commodities. Now, we're in the budget-making process.
Very good. This is
span in the works.
This is what should happen, Fred. Kenya first, right? Kenya first. So what should happen? Kenya should stop everything else. Issues about education, about health, about food is a primary law, and security, of course, is a primary law of government. We cannot, 60 years later, we are in a budget-making process. Even if we were not, we'll do a supplementary budget to make sure we serve our people. Look at the stories that we have been watching on people saying they are going to die. Look at that, coming from the voice of a Kenyan, that if we don't get this thing in another 6 months, I'm going to die earlier than I was expected to die. There is nothing else we should do. They should revise this as soon as possible. I don't want to give myself hope that we continue. I have seen the minister has been talking to US embassy officials, talking about, please pleading their cause. Now, suppose it doesn't happen. Okay, I don't know to die on hope. I don't know when we are a sovereign country, right? Can we first of all help ourselves by going to the budget and making cuts? The issues on health, and I'm talking on principle. Remember, there are many stories, we don't have the money. We are talking on principle. The issues on health, education, food, and security are the key reasons why a government exists. Mm-hmm. So, for me, they'll go back and make sure they provide for all the coin needed as they look for support outside. Mm-hmm. If the support comes, well and good, they can always reposition the money. If the support doesn't come, we cannot allow our people to die. Mm-hmm. In a nutshell, for me, the money must be looked for. And this in the budget.
This is actually going forward and looking at the budget 2025-2026, Bwana Susion. This, whatever is happening in the health industry, health sector, 68 billion shilling shortfall because of overdependence on donor funding, could also happen in the education sector. We see the problems with the high school principals now saying they're putting a proposal to raise school fees by 27,000 shillings per student because of the kind of funding gap the government is not able to fund. This is the budget-making process. Do you think we're giving it more attention?
In this current budget-making process, we need greater involvement of the public and civic education of the public, because that is a provision in the Constitution. This alarm raised by the Ministry of Health is a report that they tabled before Parliament in the process of making the budget. And it is a true situation. And, post-2010 Constitution, the budget making is seized in the hands of the National Assembly. And therefore, they have a responsibility to seek for measures of raising revenue to finance the budget. And that was contained in the finance bill. And I dare say the defeat, the withdrawal of the finance bill created a lot of mess, and now it's coupled by donors withdrawing. As a sovereign state, we must gradually work towards non-dependency on external funding to finance our budget. As a country, we can do that.
But you agree we are not doing that? Because we're talking about the budget.
Let me give you the history of it. during Kibaki's time, when he streamlined the revenue collection at KRA, we were able to finance our budget at 95% for a while. Before we spoil the country with the wild politics, the hellfire of politics that we keep bringing to this country. Now we've slipped back to depending on private partnership for development, finance, the budget, and we still don't want to support tax and revenue collection measures. We want to scale it down, and the donors are withdrawing. Americans, they are free. They can take their money away. It is not an obligation. And so I think moving forward as a country, we need to think deep. We must raise our own revenue. And the projection is in the short term.
That's happening in this budget making process.
In the short term, because how can you spend what you don't have? We have a budget of 4.2 trillion. And the KRA and the economy can raise 2.4 trillion. So we are on a deficit. And we project that in the few financial years, we'll be doing a budget of at least 5 trillion. And we have a GDP and economy that is growing. So the question is, it's simple logics, simple mathematics that a standard one child can even understand, and that a blind person can see without spectacles. We need to strengthen our revenue collection measures so that then we can raise within our own economy and even externally, and whichever way, 5 trillion that can match the requirements of the budget. That is one. Two, I agree with him for the first time. He took some little bit of sense that one, the country must finance healthcare fully for all households. Two, the country must finance education fully. So let us not talk about education being threatened simply because some donors are withdrawing. Let us mobilize our domestic resources, even if it means partnering with the private sector to support in that area. If you look at Malaysia, their strategic plans is 5 years, and is a strict one that must be delivered. And there is a midterm review. And in the midterm review, where there are gaps in terms of funding, you engage the private sector who are doing business within the country. And it is possible,
yes, as you make your final comments,
it is possible to apply innovative measures of raising revenue locally and mobilize Kenyans to understand what is happening and to appreciate the services being delivered.
And the move by Trump came too late in our budget making process because the budget policy statement is already before Parliament.
Allow me to finish, Natural. Allow me to finish, Natural.
Because you're not finishing, and we are running out of time. In fact, we have only 2 minutes.
Now, these guys who bring hellfire of politics, which does not help the country, should help us remove it so that then we repackage and recalibrate the minds of Kenyans to be part of the process of tracking the indicators of deliverables from the budget and from the revenue.
Yes.
First of all, we must remove the words like hellfire and such things. So let's talk about positive things. Number two, in a nutshell, now, we have agreed we must look for this money. Number two, he mentioned about finance bill. Let's go back. You don't force people to pay tax. People are, incentives and all that. Remember Kibaki's time. It's about communication. Why finance bill failed is about communication. Lack of it and poorly done. So there's a way you can talk to people to feel appreciated. And of course, they must see why and how it's going, where the budget is going. So where the money is going, it's all about communication. Government communication, which the president himself, admitted there's a problem. Before that is done, there's going to be to see a lot of gaps and all that. Now, number two, as we look for the money from US, we must do this. So they have to revise this. We cannot talk about debts. I can see Health Minister shocked Parliament with said that and they have unfunded of that in life and death items. We are talking about life and death of Kenyans, right? Now, he mentioned about performance because all this ties to performance of government. I can tell you this as an expert on delivery in my life in government. There is no performance and delivery in a toxic political environment. I can tell you since Gen Z time, June last year, that's when everything went haywire. It is politics to 2027. It got out of the window. You cannot do performance and delivery in a toxic political environment. Remember, there's one president who did a lot of work somewhere in Rift Valley. But when he went for the votes, he was told, no, we didn't need the road, take it away. Because he didn't manage politics. You cannot go to tell Mount Kenya, for example, that we are doing roads, yet they feel hurt. Already some political decision was made to hurt them. I want to say that in principle, because that's my area. But finally, very important, Fred, let's look at things the way they are supposed to be done. Thank you for bringing this one up. We must not run from the responsibilities. Let the government of Kenya go and fund this, because that's what should be done.
Okay.
I know, Fred, you didn't mention the front page of Daily Nation.
We didn't have time to go through that.
Kome is going nowhere. We cannot mess the issue of Supreme Court right now, 2 years before elections.
Okay.
Number 3, when you arrest someone because of Fred, because of talking about AUC and the money, go and tell them how much it is not 13 billion, it is 1 billion, but don't go and do other charges from 1984. Why don't you be fair in this world?
Okay.
I mean, if you charge the MP, go and tell him, the money was not 13, it was 1 billion. Okay. And number 2, don't bring other issues.
No.
Thank you for what was
very briefly, 30 seconds for you. Just
hellfire of lies are headed nowhere in this country. And all citizens of the Republic are at the heart of the president of the day. And so, therefore, post Addis, Kenya should remain more united. We now realize that we are a democratic superpower, and therefore we must now refocus on true unity of the country and solidarity to support the president and Raila Odinga to lead us in helping the country achieve true economic transformation.
Okay.
That dream of uniting Africa and breaking barriers and promoting intra-African trade and allowing free movement of goods and services will be achieved.
Okay.
It is not if, but it is when.
Thank you so much. Asante sana Mwalimu Wilson Sossion, who has served as a member of the National Assembly and also as Secretary General of the National Union of Teachers, and Dr. Peter Mbai, leadership and governance expert, our panelist this morning on State of the Nation, as we take a look at the big headlines. A lot of discussions. We didn't manage to probably take a look at all of them, but we did quite well as well. After the break, a conversation about infertility in both men and women. It's a very big conversation. My colleague Anodida will be on that. So do stand by for that after the break. My name is Fred Indimuli. Good morning.